Level 1, the recruit. Nobody warned you about the silence before the pain. It's 4:52 in the morning. You're flat on your back in a gravel yard, staring up at a sky that hasn't decided whether it's night or dawn yet. Your lungs are burning. Your thighs have gone past the shaking phase and entered something closer to numbness. The instructor walks past without glancing down. That indifference cuts deeper than any insult could. You signed up for this. Voluntarily. Enthusiastically, even. The selection alone chewed through 8 months of your life. Medical clearances. Financial background sweeps going back to your grandparents. 3 separate psychological interviews, one of which involved a bearded man asking whether you'd ever genuinely considered harming a stranger, and you had about 4 seconds to decide how much honesty the room could handle. Lie detector sessions where the examiner's face never moved. A fitness test that made your previous gym routine look like a warm-up hobby. And after all that, a phone call. Unknown number. Flat voice. A date, a place, a time. Nothing else. You showed up 14 minutes early. The program is built around one idea. Find your absolute limit, then drag you past it. They run you through crowd simulation drills where 4 instructors scream conflicting directions at you while you try to shield a moving target. Another trainer playing the role, through a packed hallway. You absorb an elbow to the cheekbone during week 2. Your vision stutters. You keep moving. Later you find out that was deliberate. They needed to see whether your body could operate after absorbing impact, or whether your brain would override everything with panic. Your brain, it turns out, doesn't panic. It adapts. By week 4, something fundamental has shifted in how you process the world around you. You sit in the mess hall and you're not eating, you're cataloging. The guy near the window who keeps touching his collar. The woman who entered 20 minutes ago and hasn't touched her food. You're not consciously doing any of this. Your mind has just quietly reassigned what qualifies as important information. Sleep becomes a tool rather than a comfort. For hours feels like enough. You stop dreaming about your apartment, your old job, people you know. In whatever thin rest you manage, your mind runs exit routes. One evening, the head instructor stops beside you during a drill. He watches for a moment. Then, you might actually last. He walks away. You feel more from those 5 words than you have from anything in the past year. But there's something underneath the pride worth noticing. A quiet unraveling of the person who existed before this courtyard. You don't register it yet. That comes later. Level 2, the shadow. Graduation is a handshake and a laminated card. No applause. No ceremony. A supervisor hands you an assignment sheet and tells you to study the venue blueprint before Thursday. Your first protective detail is a government attaché at a regional trade summit, low profile, medium risk, exactly the kind of posting designed to see whether your training survives contact with reality. The answer, you discover immediately, is barely. Everything in the drill was controlled. The real world is not. At the summit, you're stationed 3 feet behind and slightly left of your principal. Scanning a ballroom containing 400 strangers, 3 open bars, and 17 potential choke points you identified during your advance walkthrough. Your earpiece crackles every 40 seconds. You've been standing for 6 hours. Your jaw is locked. Your expression is professionally empty. A man cuts across the room at the wrong angle, moving too directly. Your body responds before cognition does. You close the gap, widen your stance, shift your weight forward. It's a journalist. He's reaching for a voice recorder. He blinks at you, confused. Your principal keeps walking, oblivious. Your pulse is running at 138. Your face shows precisely nothing. That gap between your internal state and your external presentation is going to define the next several years of your existence. Off-duty hours become strange. You're in a supermarket, personal time, basket in hand, and you're still tracking the entrance. Still clocking who's been in the produce section too long. Your girlfriend notices and makes a joke about it. You smile. The smile doesn't reach anything real. The peculiar thing about this level is the contradiction living inside it. You are simultaneously more consequential and more invisible than at any previous point in your life. You stand in rooms where policy gets shaped, where deals worth hundreds of millions close over handshakes, where people speak with the quiet confidence of those who know their words carry weight. And you are furniture. You are wallpaper with a heartbeat. Your entire value depends on your ability to erase your own presence from any space you occupy. Something begins to hollow out, slowly, without announcing itself. You're exceptional at disappearing. The trouble is, you're getting so good at it that you're starting to disappear even when you're not on the clock. Level 3, the operator. 3 years. The nervousness is gone. This is not a relief. This is the first warning sign you'll ignore. You've been assigned to a corporate executive whose company received written threats from 2 separate criminal networks within the same quarter. The intelligence briefings you attend are not hypotheticals. The people planning against your principal have resources, patience, and nothing left to lose. Your team of 6 is the only variable standing between this person's continued presence on Earth and the conclusions those people have already reached. Your capabilities have expanded past anything a civilian context would have words for. You don't just shadow a principal now, you construct the entire operational environment around them. Advanced work means arriving at a location 40 minutes early, walking every corridor, testing every exit, placing team members at specific coordinates, identifying the 3 most likely threat vectors and building contingencies for each. You think in sight lines. You think in seconds. The uncomfortable development is what's happening to your perception of people. Not malice, nothing so dramatic. But when you're calculating crowd geometry, moving a principal through a hotel lobby at pace, the strangers around you stop being people and become spatial variables, obstacles and openings. You catch yourself doing it in a restaurant with your brother over lunch. You're not listening to what he's saying. You're tracking the server who has refilled his water 3 times and is lingering. Your brother asks if you're all right. You say yes. You mean it, which is the problem. The team is the tightest human bond you've experienced. There's a wordless communication that develops between people who've moved through genuine danger together. A reading of body language, breathing patterns, micro-shifts in posture, that no friendship or relationship gets close to replicating. These people are real to you in a way that everyone outside the work has quietly stopped being. Which means when your long-term relationship ends in month 19, mutual, civilized, genuinely sad, the loss sits differently than it should. Somewhere underneath the regret is something that feels uncomfortably close to relief. 1 fewer variable to manage. Level 4, the specialist. Foreign postings. The work at this tier operates in a different register entirely. Your principal is significant, politically, financially, the kind of person whose movements are tracked by at least 3 separate intelligence services, not all of them friendly. You're operating in cities where corruption is structural, where your local contacts could be assets or liabilities and won't tell you which until the moment it matters. You've developed a philosophy rather than just a skill set. Protection is not about guaranteeing safety. That guarantee is mathematically impossible. Protection is about the systematic reduction of probability. You build environments, manage variables, compress risk margins. Every decision you make is in real time with incomplete data and terminal consequences if you're wrong. You've been in 2 situations that don't have comfortable names. Your body carries both of them. You wake at odd hours with your heart already at speed before your mind catches up. And you lie in whatever hotel room you're in, different city, same anonymous ceiling, and run the decision trees again. What you chose, what the alternatives were, whether you do anything different. The answer both times is no. That should settle something. It doesn't. Your ethical architecture has been quietly redesigned. In the field, you don't process situations through a moral framework, you process them through outcome models. Damage limitation. Acceptable loss. The vocabulary of conscience has been replaced by the vocabulary of probability. This isn't something that happened because you're a bad person. It happened because it's functional, necessary even. But the conscience doesn't stay quiet. It just moves. It shows up at 3 a.m. in business class seats on transatlantic flights. It shows up in the 30 seconds before a briefing starts. It asks questions you don't have satisfactory answers to, and you've gotten very competent at postponing the conversation. The people in your personal life have an outline of you, a general shape. They don't have access to the actual interior because the actual interior contains information that doesn't belong to you to share. And also, increasingly, information you're not sure you know how to translate into ordinary language anymore. Level 5, the Sentinel. Command. The detail belongs to you now. You assembled it, interviewed candidates, ran background analysis, structured shift rotations, built the threat intelligence pipeline, designed the crisis protocols. When conditions shift, which they do constantly and without courtesy, you're the person who recalibrates everything. The burden of this is not something language resolves cleanly, because your responsibility has expanded beyond the principle. Your team, their physical safety, their operational performance, their psychological condition, sits inside every call you make. You run debriefs not just to extract tactical lessons but to read your people. You're looking for the particular quality of deterioration that doesn't show up in response times or physical fitness, the kind that lives in microexpressions, in the half-second pause before someone answers a direct question, in the specific texture of silence during a briefing. You're disturbingly good at catching it, because you've been managing your own version of it for years without anyone noticing. The hypervigilance at this level isn't a feature. It's a chronic condition. You choose seats with walls behind them in every establishment you enter. You've memorized your neighbor's vehicles without ever exchanging more than a nod. An unknown number calling your phone doesn't generate curiosity. It generates an immediate assessment sequence. Who has this number? What's the likely purpose? What the response protocol should be? By every external measurement, you are accomplished beyond what most people ever reach. You carry genuine responsibility. You've kept human beings alive who would otherwise have died. That is not nothing. That is, in fact, enormous. But late at night, the question arrives that the external measurements can't answer. Where did the person go who stood shaking in that pre-dawn yard, electric with ambition and completely intact? Level 6, the ghost. No official designation exists for what you are now. You operate in the margin between organizations. Your expertise is contracted for assignments that don't generate formal documentation. The clients are significant. The nature of the work is unspoken. You have reached a tier of operational understanding that puts you among a very small number of living practitioners, and you've moved entirely past the need for institutional recognition, partly because no institution can acknowledge you without creating problems for itself. The power is real. It's enormous. It's also strangely textureless. You move between countries the way other people move between floors of a building. No fixed location. No fixed team. No consistent identity that an adversarial service could construct a usable profile around. You've achieved, professionally, a kind of total freedom. It is also complete isolation. One evening, a city you won't name, a restaurant chosen for its sightlines, not its menu. You watch a family at a nearby table. 2 children, 2 parents, the warm and slightly chaotic familiarity of people who know each other without performance. They're arguing mildly about something inconsequential. One of the children laughs at the wrong moment. Everyone else laughs too, despite themselves. What you feel isn't quite envy. It's closer to the sensation of standing outside lit windows in winter, looking at warmth from the other side of glass that isn't yours to open. Every choice that brought you here was yours. Every decision was logical. By the metrics that govern this work, you chose correctly at every junction. And you are outside the window. The human cost of becoming outstanding at protecting others is that you gradually lose the capacity to let anyone close enough to protect you. The door didn't close in a single moment. It grew incrementally over many years, one suppressed need at a time. You're not certain anymore whether you could pry it open even if the desire was there. The work continues. You do it better than anyone currently alive in this profession. That is real. But at 3 in the morning, capability offers nothing. Only the quiet is there. The quiet and the question you've been postponing for 15 years. Doctor's diagnosis, the psychology of this life. Let's examine what genuinely happened across those 6 levels, because this isn't simply a career story. It's a blueprint for a particular kind of internal collapse that wears the clothing of achievement. It starts with neurochemistry. Every successful high-pressure moment in early training floods your system with dopamine, the brain's primary reward signal. Survive the drill. Get the rush. Survive the next one. Get a bigger rush. Within months, your brain has recalibrated its baseline. Ordinary life. Unstructured evenings, slow conversations, the general quietness of civilian existence begins registering not as peace but as deprivation. You're not relaxing. Your nervous system is waiting for the next real situation. And waiting, to a brain now wired for elevated stakes, feels like something is wrong. Then the fracturing begins. The professional self, controlled, threat-conscious, morally operational rather than emotionally present, gets enormous reinforcement every day. It works, keeps people alive. It earns the respect of the only people whose opinions you've come to value. Meanwhile, the personal self receives no reinforcement whatsoever. Nobody rewards you for being emotionally available. Nobody gives you a commendation for vulnerability. So the personal self loses ground. Not dramatically, just steadily year after year until you reach for it one day and can't locate it clearly. The isolation that follows wasn't chosen. It was constructed by circumstance, then habit, then the genuine impossibility of real intimacy with people who don't inhabit your world. Closeness demands transparency. Transparency requires releasing control. And at some point, control stopped being a professional behavior and became the organizing principle of your entire psychology. What emerges, and what researchers studying long-term protective personnel consistently document, is a specific category of moral injury. Not from wrongdoing, from sustained emotional suppression. The incidence, the weight of decisions with final consequences, the accumulated cost of operating at the edge of human experience, these compress rather than release. And compression, held long enough, restructures the substrate it occupies. The final level represents what psychologists call identity foreclosure, the professional architecture so thoroughly absorbed the personal one that no stable private self remains independently functional. The capability is extraordinary. The person carrying it has become unreachable even to themselves. This fantasy draws people because it delivers something ordinary existence rarely offers: clarity of purpose, unambiguous identity, and the concrete knowledge that your presence on Earth materially matters. The world is genuinely threatening. To stand as the barrier between that threat and someone worth protecting, that is one of the most primal and deeply human callings imaginable. The cost isn't punishment for wanting that. It's simply physics. A person cannot remain professionally absent from themselves, year after year, without eventually discovering that the absence has become the only familiar address they have. The question no training program covers, the one this life eventually forces you to sit with, is straightforward and has no clean,